I can go live if you hit
I
record.
got it. I found it. You're up on all of them. Also, hello, Internet.
Crash record.
Crash record. Recording. And Detta, could you black out the screen for segment 1 for me? That one, so that it doesn't show up in the background. And Carrie Ann, you're good with the intro and whatnot? Did we lose Space Mike? Oh, he's there. I see. The hologram is missing.
His stuff is there.
Hello, Internet. I see that we're popping up online with all of the viewers.
Here come all the
Yeah, I know. Everyone's like, they're live, they're live, they're live.
They're live, they're live. YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch.
Guys, you're going to love today's show. It's going to be a lot of fun. We had to scramble at the last minute to make it happen, but I'm pretty excited. This is going to be cool.
I'm excited too.
You still don't sound clear to me.
Like
at all.
Like I'm...
Only you.
I don't sound clear, or Jared doesn't sound clear?
Bad reception. I don't know which transmitter you're on, but
I should be on 1.
The antennas are weird.
I mean, it's okay. Ultimately, I'm wired up just so that people can hear me pre and post show. I'm actually not on today's. I'm actually.
Here's how we fix that. You ready?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey.
If only you had a mute button in real life.
Hey.
Wait, we don't? Dump it.
Twitch from the main site is off.
2 minutes.
Mike, what size shirt do you wear?
Large.
Okay.
This one's getting a little small. If
Oh
that's
no,
what
that
you were
no,
getting
no,
at.
no. It wasn't even that at all.
Time to get them gains. No, I need to hit the gym. I've like all day.
I show
2,304.
Sir Game a lot. I show Twitch working in both locations. I'm not sure what you're seeing.
I just want to be like fit rocket scientist and eat Oreos with milk.
No,
Yeah, I don't know how he does that.
I don't know how the
Well,
two
he-
of you were following that. I was like,
He freaking works out. That's why. That's
I
how.
know.
Yeah, that'll do it.
He like has a craving for Oreos and milk, and then he goes to the gym, and then he earns himself Oreos and milk. I'd have just sit down and had the Oreos and milk.
Yeah, I need to go work out.
to be
I mean,
fair,
you know, we need
he
the
had
tomorrow
Oreos
workout
ice
plan.
cream.
He what?
I said, to be fair, he had Oreos ice cream. It wasn't like he had Oreos and milk.
Oreos has
I
protein
mean,
in it, right? I
Oreos
think.
and frozen milk.
One minute to open.
Oreos are vegan.
They are. So
Oh.
You're saying words again, and I don't like it.
Yeah, just don't listen to him.
I know, but he mumbles.
That's
Me?
Yeah.
What am I? Oh no. I was talking to myself. That's why I'm mumbling, because it's not for you.
see.
okay, cool. It works.
Everybody ready?
Yep.
Sure.
Get your wiggles done.
You say that, then you do that.
You do that, and then you crash for segment 3.
I know
What?
it
We need to
kills
get you,
me.
like, we need to get you like one of those pixie sticks,
Yes.
and then so you're
Just
hyper
like-
now. Because you're good right
Right in.
now. You'll be good through like segment 2, and then like you'll sit down for segment 3, and you just go boom. So we get a pixie stick. We hand you a pixie stick. You down
Okay.
that.
NASA Jim, you can't be nervous.
Hi, NASA Jim. Today's-
Also, thank you, NASA Jim. Today's entire episode would not have happened if it was not for NASA Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim.
Those of you who have been with us for the majority of this orbit 10, as it were, will remember NASA Jim Adams from a few episodes ago. And yes, really, really, thank you. Because I know you guys really like the round tables and all, but there's only so many of those you want to see in a row.
All right. Here we go.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I always feel like Julia Child when I say that. Oh, hello! Or Mrs. Doubtfire, I suppose, maybe. Oh, man, we're so excited, you guys. Like, we've actually been literally bouncing around. We're so excited for this episode. This is going to be really, really great. I, of course, am Carrie Ann. I wish I could tell you more about my week, but let's just say I had some of the most amazing interactions with some of the most incredible people this week. Even one really, very short surprise one, really late on Friday, which was very cool. So thank you. Thank you for everyone who likes to drink coffee out there. Let's just put it that way. Jared, how was your week?
Pretty good. I've been doing all the prep for the eclipse, looking at the weather in Oregon. And
you've been closing one eye, opening the other eye.
Actually, a lot of people talk about that being a technique that you should do.
No.
But the one of the top people on eclipses, Fred Espenak, who actually works for NASA, he says not to do that because it ruins the contrast, and your brain basically is like, what? I can't choose which eye I want to be the dominant one.
Interesting.
So he just says to just don't do that. Don't wear an eye patch or anything. I mean, I don't feel like being a pirate in Oregon anyhow. Does Oregon have pirates?
They do now.
I guess they will in a little bit. So.
That's really amazing. Other than that, though, good week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
perfect.
Super good week.
Good. Mike, how's your week been?
Oh, pretty good. It's not really fair that you're teasing us with stuff like that since you can't really tell us what you're talking about. But yeah, I've been working hard and doing some cool things, and we're going to have fun. There's lots of updates at the Small Stat conference over this past week, but we're only going to talk about a little bit of that. But anyway, yeah, it's been a good week.
Good. Yeah, no, we have so much to cover. This particular episode, for some reason, just managed to come together, and it's almost like a fan favorite episode. It's like we're revisiting a lot of our favorite topics this week. First, I want to make sure we also say hi to Dutta.
Hi, Boo.
Hello.
And cannot forget that. Mm-hmm. He's our producer of Tomorrow and deserves all of that credit. All right. So, like I said, we're talking about some of our favorite things. We're talking about supermassive black holes. We're going to talk about commercial crew, new horizons, launching rockets from balloons, and of course, the upcoming eclipse. Jared's actually going to be conducting our interview today with NASA lead scientist of Eclipse 2017. This is going to be a very fun show. Yes. Welcome to Orbit 10.29.
Hold.
Also, a question. Hold.
There's no audio on playing video.
I noticed that with the intro thingy. Sorry, everyone. We have to take a quick hold. Give me a camera thing.
There's an edit point. We'll edit
do we want to take
later.
that back? Did we like the intro, right?
I mean, unless you really hated it.
No, I liked it. So we'll take it from there. But we need to get audio running again. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, just roll that for me really quick. Just the bear open. That's why.
Bang up in the sky.
All right, we'll take it from here. Cut it out.
Just doing the Benny.
Ben, how do you want me to roll that? Should I roll that over black or what? You're gonna take care of the wipe and everything, or what?
Just roll the automation. Can you roll the automation? Will that work?
Yeah, but
yeah, roll it with automation, and I'll take care of the edit.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll wipe into it like the old school version.
Okay.
All right, so we're going into it. Let's go.
Okay, that wasn't me.
Without automation? Did you update the escape velocity but forget the a zero on the time?
No, 2700.
Nope, you're missing a zero.
What?
Delay 27000. There you go.
Ah. That'll do it.
Having the ISO rating doesn't mean anything. People got smart to that and they just started printing it on there.
Oh, okay.
Which is really unfortunate. But.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
for sure, I want to make sure that we should, for sure, give a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. These are the Patreons of the Escape Velocity variety. If you are not familiar, we actually have some new rewards, which is really cool. These people have given us $10 or more for this particular segment, this particular episode. They, of course, get access to our Discord channel and all the weird and wild and crazy things that we happen to think about on the daily. Just manages to brain dump right into Discord. So if you're interested in all of that weirdness and more, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. Oh my goodness. So I have in the rundown, it says launches, which is hilarious because that wasn't a thing.
There wasn't actually any launches. We almost had a launch though last night, almost like around 3 a.m. But wasn't to be, I suppose. But we don't exactly know why that launch was scrubbed yet. And that was a Japanese launch that was supposed to happen. So as soon as we get some more updates and know when their next launch date for that's going to be, then great. But right now, I'm really looking forward to the launch coming up on Monday of the next version of the Falcon 9 rocket. So that's going to be really cool. But yeah, no launches this week, unfortunately.
A little sad. I think I figured out a couple weeks ago, it was, out of the 27 episodes we had so far, only 5 of them did not have launches, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Sadly, this was another one, but that's okay.
Come on, world.
That ratio is pretty good, though. That's a pretty decent
that's
ratio.
not too bad.
I'm not going to complain too much about that. All right, so Jared, in slightly happier news then.
Yes, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this.
You want to talk about everything.
Because I wanted to talk about this last week, but there were so many amazing stories last week that I didn't really have a chance. That's been a problem in astronomy for a really long time now, is that we've got like such good technology that tons of amazing things are happening all the time in astronomy. It's ridiculous.
Right.
But this one is so cool, which is that there was a chance occultation of the upcoming target that New Horizons will be flying by on January 1st, 2019.
What's that word you used?
Occultation.
What's that mean?
It's when scientists stand in a circle and they get a pentagram with candles. And no, I'm just kidding.
Right. A cult. I see how you did that.
An occultation is when an object moves in front of another object.
Oh,
basically.
okay.
So in this case, the target, 2014 MU-69, moved in front of a star. Now, this image right here is not the actual image of the occultation. This was the discovery image of 2014 MU-69. And we had to use the Hubble Space Telescope in order to conduct a survey in 2014 because they wanted to find targets beyond Pluto along New Horizons' trajectory. So that way, if there happened to be any objects out there within the limits of what New Horizons could change its trajectory at, then we could go study them, and we found 2. And this is the one that they settled on that would use the least amount of fuel in order to get it there. Now, a team of 24 telescopes was deployed across Argentina to capture that occultation of the star. And this is actually what it looked like. This is the real data. Notice that star in the middle. Whoop, there it goes.
Oh, nice.
So this occultation lasted 1/5 of a second, 0.2 seconds, which does not sound like a lot of time at all in order for you to actually gather any data. But we got so much good data out of this that we actually may have an idea of what 2014 MU-69 looks like. And the occultation, as it was observed in multiple places at different latitudes, actually allowed us to sort of generate a view of what this object may look like, and this is it right here, using the different occultations that we actually got data from. They're at different angles, and that actually allows us to maybe figure out just what that object, or specifically 2014 MU-69, looks like.
That looks like a super sweet logo for a totally 80s nightclub.
Yeah, it's like that never released Joy Division album.
Right, you need like a little bit more
Welcome
turquoise.
to the occultation.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, and what's so cool about this is that because they had so many different places taking in data, they were able to characterize it, and they think that it's either a very oblate spheroid, which is kind of a nice way of saying football, or excuse me, for non-Americans, hand egg kind of shape. And it's roughly about 32 kilometers in size, so it's a good chunk. They also think from this that it could be a contact binary, so basically 2 objects got close enough to each other where their gravity pulled each other together and they came into contact. Sort of like a comet Churyumov-Gerasimenko
Nice.
that Rosetta orbited around from 2014 to 2016. Now, New Horizons is going to fly by 2014 MU-69 on January 1st. 2019, it's going to be moving at 14 kilometers a second when it does it, and this is going to occur at 43.4 astronomical units away from the sun. This will actually be the farthest object ever explored, and also, very interesting factoid here, the first object to be explored by a spacecraft that was discovered after the launch of that spacecraft. So
that's really cool.
Very, very cool that they were able to pull that off.
Yeah.
This is that's going to be a very exciting day. So
yeah. As Vogan in the chat room points out, rugby ball for
Rugby
those
ball.
of us
Yes.
not in the U.S. who
you
are
go.
not familiar with what the U.S. calls a football. Not to be confused with soccer. It's a very confusing. Sports ball just in general is weird.
Yeah.
Let's just agree on that.
kind of does it. Sports.
I'm not dissing sports. I just move the ball, move the thing to the other thing. Does not capture my imagination. However, what does is humans in space. How do you like that segue, Mike?
That was very good. And speaking of very important days, we're pretty much less than a year away from the scheduled commercial crew flights from taking place, and I'm really excited about it. And something that's really cool is that the NASA Advisory Council has met again. They met back in March and reported on some of their findings, but the stuff that they've reported on now was over all of the programs that NASA has been undertaking, and I just wanted to talk about the commercial crew program updates. And they pretty much be able to give the updated schedule for what Boeing and SpaceX are going to be accomplishing over the coming months to reach their goals in about a year from now. So in February of next year, Boeing is going to be doing their pad abort test, which SpaceX has already completed, and SpaceX will be doing their Demo 1 flight, the uncrewed flight test of the Dragon 2 vehicle. And then in April, SpaceX is going to be conducting their in-flight abort test, and that's going to be on a Falcon 9 rocket. It's not going to be that 3-engine variant that they canceled, but the Dragon capsule that will be used for that in-flight abort test is going to be the same one they will use for the Demo 1, the uncrewed flight test. So I think that's pretty cool. And then moving on into June of next year, Boeing is going to be doing their first uncrewed flight test of the Starliner vehicle, and SpaceX is going to be doing their first crewed test flight of the Dragon 2 vehicle. And then by August, by this time next year, Boeing should also have completed their crewed flight test. So it's a very ambitious schedule, and NASA has given a couple more updates on what the two companies have been accomplishing over the past couple of months. So first off, just talking about some of SpaceX's accomplishments over the past couple of months. They've been doing a lot of meetings on figuring out how to do all the logistics and operations, as well as mitigating all of the safety risks for the operations and actually having crews on these vehicles. And there's a couple of last-minute changes and accommodations they're doing to the software and even the hardware to make sure they're meeting NASA's human safety requirements. They're also going to be doing a lot of upgrades to the Launch Complex 39A that are still ongoing. And the next piece of that, once Launch Complex 41, or rather Launch Complex 40 is back in operation again, they're going to be installing the crew access arm as well as the White Room to Launch Complex 39A. And they just removed some of the old gantry arms recently as well. NASA did. So the work is progressing pretty smoothly for that. But moving along to what Boeing has been up to, one other thing I did want to mention is they have to do a lot of upgrades as well to the Falcon 9 rocket. And the Falcon 9 that will be the human-rated version is going to be what they're kind of internally calling the Block 5 rocket. However, before they move on to the Block 5 rocket, they're going to have the Block 4 rocket, which is actually the one I was talking about, which is going to be hopefully launching on Monday with the CRS-12 mission, and that has some of the incremental upgrades, including increased engine thrust. So really looking forward to that. But moving on to what Boeing has been accomplishing and what they still have left to do, they, of course, have also been conducting a lot of the reviews and making changes to accommodate a lot of the safety concerns. They've had to do some additional testing to their heat shield material for both the bottom and forward heat shield that would be covering their docking port. And they've also been having to do more recovery operation tests as well, doing some testing on recovery at land, and they've completed most of the operations for recovery at sea. However, they've been doing a lot of different structural test article tests, and reportedly things have been going well for that. However, they have still yet to have a full structural test article of the crew module and the service module. The service module test article has been built and will soon be shipping to the White Sands testing facility to do a lot of the thruster testing and validation. And the upgrades at the pad that they'll be launching on ULA's Atlas V rocket are essentially complete. They still have some work to do, but most of the major upgrades are complete at this point. So things are moving right along, and I'm really excited for it. And just now that we're in this, T minus 365 days, it's just like, wow, things are serious now. And I feel like now is our opportunity to really kind of express our passion for this subject, because a lot more people are going to be paying attention to this and hearing about this for the first time that might not have, now that this is moving closer and closer to being a reality. So I'm just really hyped about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I'm particularly excited because on STS-135, the last mission of the space shuttle program, they took an American flag up there and left it there, and basically the goal was capture the flag. Whichever commercial crew provider goes up there first gets the bragging rights to bring that flag back to the surface of the Earth. And I'm particularly excited to see who's going to win capture the International Space Station American flag.
Interesting.
That flag was actually flown on Columbia too.
Yeah, STS as Detta said, STS-1, right? The first flight of Columbia, or first space shuttle flight ever too. So
Nice.
yeah.
Well, if the current schedule holds, it looks like SpaceX is going to win that capture the flag race. So we'll see how things go. But yeah, it's getting close now. Exciting.
Oh my goodness. It's like the ultimate
it's like when you
geocache.
have programs like this that have been in the works for like a decade, and it's finally, about to really, really happen. It's just, it's exciting.
It's about 6 months out.
paying
It's fine.
off.
For reals. It's about a year out for reals.
Oh, love it. I love it. All right, Mr. Jared.
Yes.
You have more exciting news. And
Yes.
I mean, all of your news stories were just really fascinating. This one happens to be about dark matter.
Yes, the favorite thing our commenters on YouTube love.
It doesn't exist, though.
But it does.
Oh, okay.
So you just can't see it. Invisible light or any electromagnetic wavelength.
Oh my
We'll get
goodness.
into that in just
Please enlighten me.
Sure, I
Thank
will.
you.
I'll bring you out of the darkness on dark matter.
Appreciate
So this was a very far-reaching study that was just released a couple weeks ago, which scientists have actually created one of the most accurate maps of the distribution of dark matter throughout the universe. And it is known as the Dark Energy Survey, and it's being done at the Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory in Chile. And these measurements were basically taken to find the clumpiness of dark matter, or essentially how much dark matter is in this specific part of the universe.
Gotcha.
And that's, I guess, the
Not
science.
whether or not it's smooth or clumpy.
Yeah, and it was clumpy.
Oh, okay.
So it was a bit clumpy.
Good to know.
So this ground-based survey was actually on par with the resolution of the European Space Agency's Planck mission, which was a space telescope that had been launched about if I remember correctly, 7 years ago, and did a survey of the sky as well in microwave. And the dark energy camera is what was used by the survey, and it was one of the most powerful cameras ever used in astronomy. It gathered roughly 570 megapixels of data per image, which that's a lot. Now, this survey covers about 3% of the sky per year in great detail, and here's the data that came from them. And this initial release of data is about halfway through their goal of mapping 30% of the sky. So this is only 15% of the visible universe that we have. And like I said, they're about halfway through it. They've still got about another 5 years to go in this survey. But the overall takeaway that came from this in this study is that the observations of the universe agree with the models that we make of the universe. So that basically means that 26% of our universe is made of dark matter, 70% of our universe is made of dark energy, which we don't know what that is. We just know that it's what's causing the acceleration of the expansion of the universe. And then the other 4%, it's good old regular matter like what we're made out of here. So we are definitely quite the minority in the universe. But this was just so cool that we made the models. We've talked about the prediction of it there, and we went out and looked at the universe, and what do you know? The models are right.
Just like peanut butter, as NASA Jim in the chat room was saying.
Yeah, just like peanut butter.
Yeah.
Chunky.
Yeah.
But smooth. and all choosy moms choose dark matter, I guess. I suppose.
Yes, can we have that on a t-shirt, please?
Sure. There's lots of t-shirts being made this episode, so.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so one more story because we are running a little bit long. But these other two, I don't know if we're going to move them to next week or what's going on, but they are still really good and we still want to talk about them. However, Mike, take us away. We're talking about rockets and balloons, and we're not talking about balloon castles, bouncy castles, right? Like we're talking about okay. I have totally lost Mike though.
That's fine.
Which is amazing. Maybe he can just
Sorry
mime
about
out
that.
the rest
There we
of it. There we go.
Now the whole
No worries.
work hologram.
So yeah, for a while now, I mean, the idea of launching rockets from balloons isn't exactly a new idea, but in the new space industry, there's only been one company that's seriously been pursuing it over the past couple of years and has had the money to pursue it, and that is Zero to Infinity. So go ahead and just go ahead and roll this video that I prepared, because the whole news here is that there's 2 more companies now that are pursuing the whole idea of launching rockets from balloons. And with Zero to Infinity, which what you're seeing on screen right now, their idea is a pretty cool and pretty unique concept of having this 3-stage rocket, but using these donut-shaped, essentially, fuel tanks for it. However, with their idea, their concept is called Blue Star. They really do have to have it almost puts constraints on the customer to design their satellite in such a specific way for that. And so these 2 new companies that are coming out are kind of using more traditional rockets to be slightly more flexible for the type of satellites that they want to deploy into space. And with this, the first new company that I wanted to talk about is a company out of Bristol in the United Kingdom, and they're called B2 Space, which I'm guessing stands for Balloon to Space. And with their idea, they want to have a 3-stage rocket as well, but again in a more traditional sense, and they were hoping to deliver up to 150 kilograms into low Earth orbit. And you'll see what their concept is in just a moment here. And I kind of like how their concept is a little bit more familiar looking. It reminds me of the old European Diamond rocket, which was one of the precursors leading up to the Ariane family of rockets, even though it's super tiny. Look at that scale.
I was just gonna say,
really, really tiny. When you zoom out and see the truck, you realize how small that
Even
is.
in their own animation, they made their rocket look small. It was just kind of funny. Go on.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, I really like this idea, and the whole idea of wanting to launch from a balloon like this is a lot of the high-altitude helium balloons can get somewhere up to about 40,000 feet. And so from there, you can launch and kind of avoid the thickest part of the atmosphere and be able to launch, small satellites or even large payloads in a much better trajectory. And you can launch them from wherever you want. As long as you can fill your helium balloon and launch that from somewhere, you can essentially have custom orbits wherever you want. You're not limited to just the type of orbits that your launch site can accommodate. So that's what I really like about it, is how you could do it from anywhere at any time. And another company that has started up, I mean, this company, B2 Space, has a really small team, and another company that has an even smaller team that's coming out of California is called Cloud9, and they're out of Hayward, California, and all they're looking to do is to have a small rocket that's capable of delivering just 22 kilograms to low Earth orbit, and that's their rocket right there. That's an actual mock-up of it, and I mean, it's not very big. I mean, it's quite a bit bigger than a hobby rocket, but for the type of weight that they're wanting to do, B2 Space is wanting to have up to 150 kilograms, and this company, Cloud9, is wanting to have up to 22 kilograms. Or what they're projecting is more like 16 one-unit CubeSats. So kind of small, but I still like these ideas, and I do like that there's competition. And we're seeing more and more startups coming up, for having small satellites delivery services, and there might even be a bubble there, but I really like these ideas, and I'm hoping that at least I think out of these 2, B2 Space is my favorite, and I hope that they this British company gives some competition to the Spanish company Zero to Infinity, and we're able to see both things happen, or at least one happen really well. So
yeah, totally.
That's cool.
Oh my goodness, I love it. All right, so I'm getting word that we're going to try and do the last 2 news stories that we really do want to get to in After Dark. So if you're watching live, stay with us. We'll be able to get to that a little bit later on. And if you're not watching live, maybe think about doing that sometime and kind of, joining the rest of us here on what here in America is usually Saturday mornings. But right now we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Jared is going to have a great interview, you guys. This is going to be so much fun. And we're talking about the eclipse. So So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall little fashion lines. Filled with some expectation. This girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Her body keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
Hello, and welcome back to Tomorrow. Now, before we get started with our interview, we would like to thank some of our Patreon patrons who have helped contribute to making this show happen. Of course, we first want to thank our Escape Velocity members. They give us $10 or more per episode of Tomorrow, and they get access to things like our Discord channel and all the other fun stuff that they get, especially some of the new rewards. And of course, how can we forget our Orbital patrons that we have here? They give us anywhere from $5 to $9.99 per episode. They get new rewards as well. Like they actually get to have show topic voting rights and other things like that. So if you would like to help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. Now, I'm very, very excited, being an astronomer myself, that we actually get to have an entire show segment dedicated to astronomy, because we often don't get to do this. We always want to talk about launch providers and these other new space companies, but now we're finally going to get into the bread and butter of the stuff that I do. And in order to do that, we have Dr. Lika Guha-Takorta here with us today, and we're glad to have you here on Tomorrow, Doctor.
Oh, what a pleasure. And I was listening to your earlier, news report. I have never kind of been acquainted with this show, and I have to say it was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you so much. And just to give a little introduction of yourself, you're actually NASA's lead scientist for the 2017 eclipse, and that is a very awesome title to have.
You are right, and I can only hold on to this title for another few days.
Yeah, just another few days. I think, what are we now? We're like 9 days away from the eclipse, I believe.
Yeah, Monday the 21st.
Yep, that's 9 days. So it's quickly approaching, and hopefully everybody who's watching on Tomorrow that's in the United States has their plans ready, because if you don't have your plans ready to go see the eclipse by now, best of luck to you, I guess is the way we'll put it with that. So, Doctor, just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you work on as the lead scientist for the 2017 eclipse.
I will very quickly get to that, but before I do that, what I want to say is that the ones who are listening, really, you don't have to go anywhere to actually see the eclipse. So the eclipse will come in two varieties, a partial eclipse or a total eclipse. Now, if you want the full show, and that's what I absolutely recommend, then you have to take yourself to the path of totality. But if you don't want that, just stay wherever you are, and if the sky is clear, you're going to see a partial eclipse. All of America will, including Alaska and Hawaii, and of course parts of Canada. So that's eclipse. So what am I doing with the eclipse? It's an interesting question. In late 2015. I was given this honorary title to be the lead scientist for the Eclipse 2017. And I asked of myself, what does one do, NASA doesn't control the eclipse. So how do I become the lead scientist for the eclipse? What's going to be my role? What am I going to do? And I would say that it was, I'm saying it jokingly, but it was non-trivial in my mind. It felt like a responsibility, yet I knew I had no celestial power to control this eclipse. I had the power of, NASA bullet pulpit. I maybe had a little bit of, resources in terms of monetary money, as well as our operating spacecraft. And so I actually started thinking of how to bring the eclipse science so that it is science that encompasses sort of everything that is possible during an eclipse. Very often we astronomers have just concentrated on the solar physics side of eclipse, right? So we get to see the innermost part of this outer atmosphere of the sun called the corona. And that is very, very important. But then there is a whole host of other signs that gets enabled during eclipse. And this particular eclipse is so important because it is covering sort of coast to coast a big chunk of the American landmass where the path of totality goes through. But as I say, the shadow, the penumbral shadow sweeps through all of America. And so it enables essentially doing other kinds of signs, signs in the shadow of the moon, signs in the ionosphere that gets perturbed because you're cutting off solar insolation, earth signs, because again, you're cutting off solar brightness. You know, how would the land surface, vegetation respond? What happens to the microclimate where you're experiencing totality, including animal behavior? You know, when the temperature really falls and it becomes dark in the path of totality and around that region, animals absolutely respond to these changing conditions and kind of adopt their normal behavior. If these are diurnal creatures, they kind of tend to go back to their home thinking night has descended, nocturnal creatures will come out. So I essentially try to put together a research call to unleash people's thinking on interdisciplinary science for eclipse. And that's kind of how I have approached this eclipse. But I've said a lot. I'll let you ask me a question.
Sure. No, that was great. It's so cool to hear of all these meshings of science, like science I wouldn't have even thought of, like biological sciences and meteorological sciences with microclimates and things. I would have never even thought about that being something that you could study during a total solar eclipse, but you can because of the nature of it. But I want to ask you, what's your personal favorite study that's going to be done during this total solar eclipse?
Oh, I'm like a mom here. I just can't pick one child over another. So it really, for me, it's the combination, the variety, the engagement of citizen scientists. It is just breathtaking. And I am waiting to see that beautiful shimmering corona, if nature would allow this, because ultimately it would depend on clear sky condition wherever we are. Even if we take ourselves to the path of totality, it is such a mesmerizing moment. And I'm a scientist who's done eclipse science, led eclipse expeditions, yet it just kind of feels transformative when you are in the shadow and looking at that corona.
Now, you mentioned citizen science, which is always a great way for people who maybe aren't professional scientists to actually get involved in studies like what we've got with the upcoming eclipse here in 9 days. What are some of the citizen science projects that our viewers of tomorrow could get involved with?
Well, first of all, let me give you the NASA website where you are going to find all of this information in great detail, which is NASA 2017 eclipse, I think. No, not NASA 20, eclipse2017.nasa.gov. Please make sure that that's the right website and you have it on your website. So some of the fascinating variety of citizen science experiments that are going on, we have something like 60 telescopes, all across the path of totality, strewn across 2,500 miles, that will be observing the corona in great detail with great temporal and spatial resolution to get the dynamic behavior of the corona this close, which we can't do from space actually in visible light, but have it for 90 minutes. If you want to kind of do your own stuff, I would say there are couple of apps available. One is Globe, where you can do actually, you can add your own sensors to your either Android or iPhone device. You can measure temperature, cloud cover. You can record sounds of animals. There's another app from Cal Academy of Science that's actually trying to promote, detection of animal behavior. How do they change as the light actually gradually varies over a period of almost 4 hours, going from the very start of the beginning of the eclipse to the end of it. There's a lot of activities even now that you can actually participate in.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely got to download some of those since I'm planning to be in the path of totality, hopefully with good weather, and good weather to everyone who's going to attempt to do that in the path of totality as well. So I just want to jump to our chat room real quick and take some questions from there. The first one I've got is from Neuropilot, who's asking if SOFIA will be flying. And for those of you who aren't familiar with SOFIA, that's the Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, basically a good-sized infrared space telescope, or it's not space telescope, but infrared telescope in the back of a 747. Is it going to be involved in any of the studies for the eclipse?
And it's a very good question. I wish the answer was yes, but the answer is actually no. It's very difficult to retrofit SOFIA to look at the sun. Sun is one of those stars that astronomers really hate because they take away 12 hours of their observing time. And I mean, what is this creature? That's what we solar astronomers have to deal with. So SOFIA is too, it would be too much for SOFIA to look at the sun. But in future, there's another eclipse coming up in America. We are so blessed in 2024, where we might actually think of doing some infrared astronomy. But let me tell you, as you were asking earlier, some of my favorite experiments, some of the new things we are doing with this eclipse is we will be flying actually both a visible and infrared camera on WB-57-2 NASA airplane, above 50,000 feet, actually observing the corona in infrared and visible. And then towards the very end of the eclipse, when we are done with observing the corona, and this is the only time when we can also see the planet Mercury, this infrared camera will actually be focused at Mercury to study Mercury's, surface temperature, etc. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and I know working up at Griffith Observatory myself, Mercury is an unbelievably difficult target to see because it's either too close to the sun or it's so low on the horizon you have to look through a ton of atmosphere and it really distorts the view. So that should be pretty awesome. I know I've only seen Mercury twice in my 20 years of doing astronomy, so it's very, very difficult.
You need a solar eclipse.
Yeah, you do, and I think that's so cool that you brought that up about the fact that even with the technology that we have right now, there's certain things that you study that is just not as good as doing it during an actual eclipse. I guess in some cases the moon is better itself than some of the systems that we have to try to block the light from the sun.
Absolutely. Moon is a perfect occulter, being at the right distance, right, from us, which covers the entire visible disk of the sun. So one of the things we still can't do from space, NASA is flying so many I wouldn't say so many, some solar observatories, but we still can't observe the innermost part of the corona in visible light. And that is very critical information for scientists. And we can do this only during a total solar eclipse because, even when we put occulting disks in front of telescopes to block the visible disk of the sun, these are from spaceborne observatories like SOHO, SDO, Stereo. What happens is that there is enough scattering and noise that you cannot see very close to the edge of the photosphere. You can see it in soft X-ray, extreme ultraviolet, all those lines, but not in visible. And visible light is critical to getting a very pristine, clean measurement of the distribution of electrons in the corona.
Now, our producer, Detta, actually has a question that I'm sure is on a lot of people's minds that are going to go see the eclipse, which is how long does the eclipse last? So if you're in that path of totality, how long is it going to completely cover the sun for?
So the eclipse is going to, it's the path of totality is almost like a band that's maybe 70 miles wide, and at the center line, the eclipse duration is going to vary anywhere from 2 minutes to over. The city where the eclipse will be the longest is Hopkinsville in Kentucky. It's 2 minutes and 40 seconds. That's the maximum duration anywhere of this eclipse. And as you move away from the center line along the edges of the path of totality, it's going to, of course, reduce in the amount of time you will have.
And back to our chat room, Anomaly also has a pretty good question that I'm sure a lot of our viewers would like answered, which is how often do eclipses like this occur?
Well, the word like this is something I will clarify, but in general, total solar eclipse of the sun occurs about every 12 to 18 months. But often these will happen from very exotic location on our planet, far, far away, often over water body, because most of our planet is water. So it's not very accessible to ordinary people. There are people like me who will traverse great length to go actually observe an eclipse because we want to take measurement. So, but eclipse of this nature, like cutting through, the phase of totality, going through 14 states in a populated, technologically developed country like America, happens very rarely, very rarely. And the last time it happened was in 1918. 99 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I don't know when something like this will happen again. Not in 100 years, I can tell you, maybe in 1,000 years. I haven't looked it up. But we are lucky enough that we will have another eclipse, which will go through the eastern segment of USA in 2024, which will again be visible to be a large population. And you can always take yourself to that place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to let our viewers know, that's on April 8th, 2024. So, and that one will go through Texas, into the Midwest, up to the eastern seaboard, kind of through that area right there. So not as a country crossing like our eclipse in 9 days is going to be, but still going to be particularly, it'll still be an amazing event to see.
Yeah, it's not as sweeping, like
yes.
One. This is pretty amazing. And, I say that we are doing our test run for the eclipse of 2024. Everything we are doing.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing any and all of the science that comes out of this one and the next one in 7 years as well. So I just want to ask real quick, just for our viewers, sort of for clarification for them, what are some of the safe ways that you can actually view an eclipse? Because there's been definitely a lot of unsafe practices I've seen being thrown around by people. So what are some of the safe ways that our viewers could actually view this eclipse?
I will certainly talk about this because that is one of the very important areas within NASA in communicating the safety aspect of this eclipse. Now, the sun doesn't behave any differently during the eclipse. So, we're not creating any new conditions, but the fact that the sun gets dimmer and dimmer and you have this crescent, sometimes people think they can just stare at it. We never want to look at the sun at any time without protection. You need the safety glasses anytime you are looking at the sun directly, anytime, anywhere. And I would say that please, again, go to the NASA website to get the recommendation of the appropriate safety glasses. Now, having said that, so if you are in the path of, not in the path of totality, you're observing the partial eclipse, and also in the path of totality, you're going to observe partial phases. Always wear your glasses to look at the sun. If you're looking at the sun directly. The only time you can take your glasses off to look at the sun, and this would happen only in the path of totality, is when the visible disk of the sun is completely covered. It is all dark. There isn't even a ray of light coming up. And you have to take your glasses off at that time because otherwise you're not going to see the corona. The glasses will actually block the light that the corona emits. So you really need to take your glasses off to see the corona. Other ways of actually enjoying and observing the eclipse, if you don't want to look at the sun directly, is by projecting the eclipse. And you can create pinholes to project it on the surface, and you can see how the crescents are progressing. This is a summer afternoon. If you are outdoors under a tree with tree leaves, overlapping tree leaves will create little pinholes. And it is a fascinating sight. You'll see thousands of crescents, and if there's a gentle wind blowing, you'll see these shadows move. So there are lots of unique ways of creating, little experiments and projecting the sun to see how it's progressing, the eclipse.
So to kind of move away from the eclipse a little bit and into your own scientific background and career, tell us a little bit about NASA's Living with a Star program, because that studies the Earth-Sun system, which is a very important field of study for us.
Yeah, well, what a beautiful name for a program, Living with a Star. And, even as we know that we live with this star, it's not often that we have connected the various aspects of what the sun does, how it varies, and its connection to our technologically dependent society. So this whole concept of sun-earth connection and the creation of a new discipline, I would say, called heliophysics, kind of got ushered by this program. And so what Living with the Star does is it kind of tries to understand the sun as a star and its impact on life and society. The sun produces energetic particles, big blobs of mass comes out like storms called coronal mass ejections, high-speed solar wind. All of this creates a condition in space. This is above our troposphere. This is the magnetically connected part of the sun. And this environment, these conditions it creates is called space weather. And as we know, as societies are getting more technologically vested, space weather has become a very important phenomenon, very much like terrestrial weather. So anything that is electromagnetically driven can be affected by space weather, like your satellites can have single event upset if there is a solar storm, or if there are astronauts doing extravehicular activity could be exposed to solar radiation, or your GPS navigators or communication devices will be affected by the ionospheric disturbance which will be caused by solar storms. And in fact, this even affects our power grid. And that probably is one of the more sort of fearful side of what solar storms can do. So when solar wind particles blows and compresses the magnetosphere, it kind of generates, electric current, which can cause voltage fluctuation on transformers and sometimes can just fry transformer, and that leads to mass scale blackout, power outages. And the issue with transformer is that if a transformer is blown out, it takes many months to years to produce one. So space weather has become kind of one of those areas that are very important to understand the physics, very important to forecast. NOAA does the forecasting for the nation, when such events are about to come impinge. So various sectors can take mitigating steps. We can't stop the sun, but we can at least turn off our instruments or power grid, power supply, whatever we need to do. So this is what I think Living with the Star program kind of ushered us into. And from the Sun-Earth connection, now we are looking at Sun-Planet connection. So planets have environment. How did Mars lose its atmosphere? Its interaction with solar winds. We are trying to, understand the complex physics, chemistry of all the planetary environment.
And what are some of the spacecraft that are being used in the Living with the Star program?
So the first spacecraft that was launched, sort of the cornerstone mission in Living with the Star program, is Solar Dynamics Observatory, launched in 2010, which is actually giving us a high resolution image of the corona in 10 different temperature band filters every second. And with this, we are not only able to sort of peer into the active regions that are producing the storms, but also look at the connections between other distant regions. How is it shaping? How is the magnetic field emerging? How does it disrupt? And of course, SDO doesn't do any of this alone. We have many other supporting observatories that are also providing valuable resources which are used for modeling.
And what are some of the interesting things that we've learned from the Living with the Star program? Have there been any sort of surprises that our sun has thrown at us?
The sun is throwing surprises at us, I think, every moment. Can we catch it is the question. And that's what, scientists and our observational technique are not as fast-paced as what sun throws at us. But absolutely, I would say that our knowledge of sort of understanding, the structure of coronal mass ejections in 3 dimensions, how rapidly it moves in space, how does it interact with the interplanetary environment to create particles. It's shocks generated, which creates high energy particles. What sort of leads to an event like a Carrington event, which was this huge solar flare that went off in 1859 that was observed from planet Earth by Richard Carrington, really projecting that effect. And, if something like that happens today, that massive solar flare, I think we will experience a lot of damages if proper, forecasting is not done and if proper mitigating steps are not taken. So to understand essentially what creates the condition for a Carrington type event, we are making progress towards understanding that. We are making progress towards understanding the various ideas behind what hits the corona. Are we there completely? No. That's why we are going to send a spacecraft actually to the sun next year, exactly a year from now, called Parker Solar Probe, which will go to within 10 solar radii of the sun to actually locally measure the particles. It's no longer remote sensing, right? A column of stuff that we have to deconvolve. It is actually going there, sampling. We won't bring the sample back, but we are going to measure, record, and deliver that information to know what is the magnetic field environment, what are the ions doing, how fast are they moving, are there high frequency waves being deposited in the corona from magnetic reconnection or nano flares that's hitting the corona. These are the questions we are going to answer.
So to go to our chat room real quick, Anomaly has a very interesting question, which is, does the sun have seasons?
Yes, I guess you could say that. Seasons have different interpretations in our mind. What the sun has are cycles. And the most common one is this 11-year cycle. And so every 11 years, the solar magnetic field sort of waxes and wanes. And we are now in the descending phase of the solar cycle. At the peak of the solar cycle, what happens is we have the surface of the sun covered with many sunspots. And sunspots are these dark regions which are areas of very strong magnetic field. And the magnetic field is so strong that it inhibits conduction of heat. So it appears kind of dark compared to the rest of the surface. During solar minimum, sort of few years down the road, the sunspots disappear. There are fewer sunspots. With solar maximum, you have higher frequency of solar storms, coronal mass ejections, all these activities that energizes our space weather environment. During solar minimum, what we have is these activities still will go on, but the frequency goes down. And I kind of want to touch on one more aspect about this solar cycle behavior. So the sun behaves, from maximum to minimum in magnetic field. Now, when the sun behaves that way, what happens? It kind of protects us from the galactic cosmic rays, which are not solar in origin, but interstellar medium in origin that comes into our heliosphere. So when the solar magnetic activity cycle is high, we get fewer galactic cosmic rays, and they are dangerous things. When the solar magnetic activity cycle is weak, we get more galactic cosmic rays. So as we think of going into deep space, Moon, Mars, and beyond, we have to kind of couple these two conditions and understand the radiation environment that the sun is creating around us.
So to go to our chat room real quick, just to get a few more questions before we officially wrap up our interview. Destructor 1701 has a pretty interesting one to me that I'd like to kind of throw out there, which is, are there any Lagrangian sweet spots behind atmosphereless worlds in the solar system where you'd like to park a probe in permanent totality? So are there any places where we could actually use like a planet or something to generate artificial totality for like a package of instruments?
What a fascinating question. In principle, at Lagrange point 1, we have spacecraft like SOHO, ACE, all of that, right? And where we are using telescopes to observe the sun. But if you're talking of actually putting a planet in front, is that the question?
Mm-hmm,
that you have to gently tug and move an asteroid or something at the right distance. But then you'd have to worry about what happens, if that gets a slight nudge and kind of takes a different orbit and comes back to haunt us. Well, it's a fascinating, almost science fiction-like question, but who knows? In reality, someday we might be doing things like that.
Yeah, sounds perfect for a future extreme verge on the edge of technology kind of mission to work on with it. And then we'll take one more question from the chat room from Sarge Enzyme, which is asking, will there be a replication of the experiment to show the deflection of light that the sun produces? And I think that's referencing Eddington's 1919 experiment to see if general relativity actually works. So anything like that?
Yeah, what I can say, there's so much going on, right? I'm largely giving you a NASA perspective, some of the citizen science aspects. So I don't know all the experiments that are going on. From the NASA side, we are not supporting any experiment that is going to do, the replication of Eddington experiment. But I believe that there are amateur astronomers attempting to do that.
Yeah, and that just, I guess, goes to show how good the technology's gotten, that now, almost 100 years after that experiment, you can do that experiment in your backyard if you want to. So that'd be fascinating to see if an amateur astronomer could actually do that. So for our final set of questions, we have a general set of questions that we ask all of our guests. There is no right or wrong answer. Take as long to think about it as you need to, as long as you like to articulate it for. We just ask these, and if you got an answer, excellent. So we'll go ahead and get started with our first general question, which is Moon or Mars first?
why not sort of have a parallel path? Why either or?
Yeah, good, interesting answer to that. For space, would you go?
Yes.
And
Hell yes.
okay. I think that sentiment is shared by a lot of us on the show. So good stuff. When do you think humans will first land on Mars?
Well, that's a tough question. It's all about, having the political will. That's all. When that political will come, I can't say.
All right. And for our fourth one, when do you think humans will set foot on the moon again?
I believe that probably will happen very soon. Even if America doesn't go back, there are other nations poised to do this. It will happen soon.
And our final and my favorite question that we ask out of these general questions, why space?
Well, where would you rather go? This is a frontier, right? I mean, first we went to the poles, then we went to our near Earth space, the geospace. We sort of cascaded out from a concentric circle of being human beings bound to low Earth gravity. And the next frontier, I believe, is space. We've been living on International Space Station over 10 years. I mean, we've already been there. So I don't even know how to answer this question. It's a natural progression of who we are, how curious we are as a species, and how we like to understand, sometimes dictate, dominate our environment. And in that realm, that's the only frontier left.
All right, Dr. Liha Guha Takorta, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We appreciate you coming on tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, and now what we're going to do, we're going to head to a quick break, and when we come back from that, your comments from last week's show. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
We've always looked to the stars. They guide us, give us comfort, help us find our way. We see ourselves out there. When we look up, it inspires us. And we long for something we don't yet know. We yearn to go there. So, we venture forth.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not.
Many think we stopped exploring. But we know our journey didn't end. We've only just begun.
Orion is functioning perfectly at this point.
Come with us and explore tomorrow.
Who knew the sun could be that interesting? And we just scratched the surface. We didn't even get into like space weather or there's so much with the sun that's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
We're going to absolutely have to have her back on in the future. She was incredible. That was a great interview, Jared.
Thank you.
Absolutely
yeah,
fantastic.
She was so much fun to interview too.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, I'm Benjamin Higginbotham. Before we get started with comments from last week's show, thank you to all of our patrons of tomorrow who helped make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are people who've contributed $10 or more to this specific episode. We've also got our orbital patrons who've contributed $5 or more to this episode, and our suborbital patrons. They've contributed $2.50 or more to this specific episode. To find out how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. We are a crowdfunded show. Every single penny helps. So thank you, seriously, thank you to all the patrons for helping to make this show go week after week. Hopefully you're enjoying your new rewards as well. All right, last week we had the suborbital space roundtable, right? Mm-hmm. So we're talking about suborbital space and what its role is going to be. Is it important, and is it going to be a real thing? Because we've been talking about it. It's been 6 months away for like 12 years now.
Yeah.
Right? So Capcom, why don't you take it away? Get us into the comment section.
All right. The first comment comes off of YouTube from Mark Wilson. Says, thank you for doing a show devoted to suborbital. It doesn't get mentioned at all in the media. I do, however, think that it will be a much bigger thing than you guys realize. I foresee lots of regular people getting their 15 minutes of fame in places all around the world after going to space. Once you have the world's attention, then money and interest will pour in for all other space-related ventures.
Space Mike, what do you think?
I mean, I certainly hope so, but someone has to do it. Once someone does it, then, the regular mainstream media is going to talk about it, and it's going to get a bunch of attention. And I liked kind of the thing that we edited out, can you imagine the welcome home parade for the first, person from Zimbabwe to go on a suborbital flight? They're technically the first astronaut or something like that. So it could be a very big deal, but someone has to do it first. As soon as someone has the vehicle that's safe enough and reliable enough to actually do it, then sure, this will happen. And I certainly hope that is our happen. This is our future, but it has to happen first.
It feels like we're just on the cusp of that, though. But it feels we've been on that cusp for like 10 years. So, you, Jared?
I feel like the first GoPro commercial shot inside of a suborbital spacecraft is going to be an absolutely amazing thing to see, because that's going to happen.
Sure.
And it's not like throwing that out there. It's not necessarily going to be private citizens that are going to want to do suborbital space flights. It's also private companies that are going to want to do it. Corporations, and like I talked about very strongly during the roundtable, universities and things too. Sure. That's really where it's going to take off and really get a lot of its attention and a lot of the money and flights being thrown at it. I feel like are going to come from that, and I feel like a lot of people sort of cast that asunder and don't really acknowledge the fact that that's going to become a huge driver behind it, and I feel like that's really going to sustain it for a lot longer than many people are expecting it to.
How about you, Carrie Ann?
I think it's not going to last really long. I really don't, other than possibly a business case. But I mean, we talked about that all last week, right? So,
sure.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it to be at a price point that I can afford. Like, I think that's interesting. But I don't see it being replacing airplanes or other than, again, like for a business case kind of situation. But
all right, next up.
Next one comes off of Twitter from Green Jim, who happens to be in our chat room right now, actually.
Hi, Green Jim.
So it says, suborbital point-to-point might be more popular with business folk if it doesn't do microgravity. They may not want that experience.
That might be the case. I think the idea is space sickness, right? You're worried about.
Sure.
But as I understand space sickness, that's not something where you just like go to microgravity and get sick.
Well, not just space sickness, but I mean, I think even the concept of like, all right, it's only a 2-hour flight to get between. Pick two places on the point of the Earth that are really far away from each other. But I don't want to be able to have my peanuts that I can't have on the plane anymore and my vodka tonic and then have that floating all over the place. I don't want that. Yeah. I just want to get to where I'm going faster than I normally can.
I feel like a bunch of safety harnesses the whole time. And
right,
stuff like
right. Like if it's a business case, if it's like a business person as opposed to like FedEx of space, I guess. Being dressed nicely, presumably, and like I said, and drinking my vodka tonic. I don't want that splashing all over the place. I don't want to have to be put into a special suit just because I'm going into microgravity. I don't want any of those things. I just want to get to where I'm going, where I need to be, faster than any other way.
I feel like the people who are going to go on these types of point-to-point suborbital flights, are the kind of people who will understand that they may not necessarily be allowed to remove themselves from the 7-point harness throughout the flight. I think they understand there's going to be a level of definitive uncomfortableness so I mean, you're literally strapping yourself to a rocket. I mean, I would hope that you understand what you're getting yourself into in the case of something like that.
I mean, at first, but it doesn't have to consistently be that way. I mean, you look at
look
at Skylon, which is a ways out. Given it's a ways out, but it's going to launch and land like an airplane. I don't know what the G-forces on that are going to be when it converts, but it doesn't seem like. Again, I don't have enough information on the Sabre engine to know. Go ahead.
And even Skylon, they have a different version other than the Skylon space plane that would be a very high altitude but much more gentler ride than what the Skylon would be. I forget what they're calling it, but they have a different designation for that. And it would have 4 engines, 2 on each of their kind of smaller but larger wings than the Skylon. I'm sorry, I've forgotten what the name of that is, but they are working on that type of concept of having a gentler ride, of having that type of point-to-point transport.
Is it still like a Mach 10 vehicle kind of thing?
Oh yeah. It would still be like, Australia to New York within 2 hours or something like that, or less. But yeah, still the type of thing that we're talking about.
I mean, to this comment, I could see that actually, as I said, possibly being more desirable for the business traveler.
Right. Well, first of all, Jutta in the chat room says put it in a bag. I'm not sipping a gin and tonic out of a bag or a vodka tonic out of a bag. That's just ridiculous. That's not going to be a thing. But then Jim too in the chat room then says, if it's going to be uncomfortable, then many business folk might opt for slower and more comfy. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's only so many times that eating M&Ms floating around in the air is actually going to be fun. If you're trying to get to a particular place, you don't, that's just not the experience that you want in general. So I totally understand that. There was something else. Neuropilot says 3 to 5 Gs.
Okay, I mean that's still a lot.
Chunk.
That's a good chunk.
That's significant.
Yeah. That'll make it a little hard to breathe if you're not well trained for G's like that. So.
Yeah, that's more than I thought it was going to be. All right, next up.
But I mean, how much is your average roller coaster though? I mean, most people have probably experienced that.
Yeah, but 3 to 5 Gs for how long?
Sustained.
All right, I mean, your average roller coaster is, however many Gs
you
for...
only experienced, for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to
30
do...
seconds max.
Right, like my 5-pound cat takes a nap on my chest.
Shuttle with 3G throttle for 120 seconds.
I don't think a roller coaster is 3 Gs for 30 seconds. I think it's 3 Gs for like a second or two.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's only during those like huge crests down. You're not going to have like the sustained 3 Gs of force. That's and even then, does a roller coaster go to 3 Gs? That's a lot.
Yeah, 3 Gs is definitely enough to get your attention.
Yeah,
for sure.
To be fair, some roller coasters get your attention.
That is true.
All right, next up.
Next one comes off of Reddit from this particular chat. I can't pronounce it, so I apologize. Sure, we're just going to go with that. I don't really know. I think suborbital tourism is important for increasing awareness. I think suborbital tourism is important for increasing awareness and generating hype, even if it isn't around for so long.
Yeah. As long as something bad doesn't happen.
Yes.
Right? Because that could be positive or negative publicity. And all methods of transportation, including walking, have deaths. But for whatever reason, airplanes, which are some of the most safest methods of transportation, and anything like this, they're going to get so much press, so much more press, when something goes wrong there than the, what is it, like 40,000 people dying in car accidents in the U.S. every year, something like that. It's something like that, and maybe that's the worldwide number, but it's somewhere. Like, so many more people die in cars, but we're so used to it that it's just not news. Right? When was the last time you heard, you don't hear it. Yeah. So...
there is a level of complacency in the media when things are steady as she goes.
Well, I mean, it's not just the media, right? It's because it's what people are willing to consume.
Yeah.
So, I mean, generating hype, but what kind of hype? Hopefully the good kind. I'm hopeful for the good kind, but something's going to go wrong. And I don't mean to be Debbie Downer here, but I mean, this is hard stuff. Even if it's not the flight, even if someone has a medical condition they didn't know about and gets onto a rocket that then goes 3G and does something bad to their body and they can't make it off, that sucks. I hope that never happens, but it could. That's going to make national news.
Absolutely.
Is that good or bad for the industry? I don't know. I mean,
even when somebody has a medical emergency on just an airplane flight, that makes the news.
right?
Nowadays.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's maybe. Next up, Capcom.
All right. Next one comes off of YouTube from Stephen Thompson. Several years ago, I started writing a story titled "In Space, No One Can Hear You Cheer." It dealt with a Copenhagen suborbital-style solo launcher that operated like an amusement park ride. The point of the story was that the woman flying would be the first deaf person in space. I think that even if it's just used for stunts or as a fancy ride, human suborbital flights will stick around for some time.
Yeah, there's that element of opening up access to the crossing 100 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. So
There was a post on Reddit /r/SpaceX Lounge, I believe, talking about how, and some people are like, well, if it doesn't pass 100-kilometer mark, the Kármán line, it's not space. That's the definition of space. And I think we need to have an entire second segment, an entire interview segment dedicated to what defines space. Because 100 kilometers isn't it. The definition of space is fluid, much like space itself. And there's that line is really interesting in how it was derived. And ultimately it comes down to the Kármán line is basically where you need centrifuge force. You need your forward momentum to keep you aloft as opposed to lifting force from the altitude. That's basically the differentiator. But the sun actually has a controlling factor in that as well.
it does, yeah.
So, tying it back to today's episode, the sun is an important part of that. And that line can actually go above 100 or well below 100, depending upon space weather and a bunch of other variables. So there's this kind of arbitrary 100, well, not arbitrary, but 100 kind of a general median line where you really can't use lift anymore to stay into space. And that's how it was decided on. It's actually not exactly 100. It was rounded to 100 because that's the easier number to remember. So it's not even technically correct. It's just a rounded number. Even on top of that, it is not an internationally recognized number. There's no worldwide standard for the boundary of space whatsoever. It does not exist. Some entities like NASA and IAF, I think it is, IFA, something like that, do recognize that but other entities like the U.S. military do not. So I don't know how I got off on that, but I think we should have an entire show about where the boundary of space is, because if you're like, I won't go on anything that doesn't pass 100 kilometers, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's a made-up number. So
I just want to throw out there my personal opinion. I don't care as long as I get to ride on something that's powered by a rocket.
That's pretty cool.
Sweet.
Pretty cool. If you're at the point where you're weightless, you can experience the curvature of the Earth, and you require more centrifuge force than lifting force, you're in space. Yeah. Right. If the vehicle itself isn't acting as a lifting body,
is someone who pays $250,000, or what's 12 miles to them, I suppose.
It's not even that. It's all of them, right? It's even Blue Origin. It doesn't matter if you're at the point where it's no longer atmosphere lifting you up. You're in space. That's ultimately what it should be. Then you're in space. And also, why do we have this weird differentiation? Anyhow. That is a show.
If you have to be in a pressure suit to survive that, I mean,
right?
That feel like space, anyways, to the person experiencing it.
Well, exactly. So we need to get rid of this whole Kármán line thing. It's not, and I'm pronouncing it wrong. But
I feel like the pressure suit would be a little too wide to allow that to occur, because then you could technically say. Because you basically 30,000 feet or higher, you need a pressure suit in order to be conscious.
And at that point, you're still a lifting body.
Yeah, you still are.
So that doesn't really.
I don't feel like the flight I'm going to go on that goes to 40,000 feet should necessarily be a qualifier, if you will. To say that. So
well, we're going off on one tangent.
Yeah, this is
sorry.
Let's come
my
back.
Fault. My fault.
It's a good tangent, though.
The overview effect from that high, though.
Yeah, but and that's where it gets sticky too, because you don't need to go to space.
So the next comment comes off of YouTube.
Well, hang on.
Are you serious?
Yeah. You don't need to.
Here we go.
You don't need to. I'll finish on this. You don't need to go to space for the overview effect. You can go in a balloon, which is going to be less than half of the distance to space to expected space. So you can almost get the overview effect from a commercial airliner. Not quite, but like Concorde, you could start to get the overview effect, right? So anyhow,
yeah,
start to.
Blows my mind when I go on a plane and I look out the window. Anyhow, So
Isn't that all right?
it's just unbelievable. So
Now,
yeah.
Capcom next. And we're steering the show this way. Donna has commanded. We're moving on.
Comes off of YouTube from Membrane 556. The public needs to be better educated about nuclear power, as its ignorance not only harms space exploration, it also harms our ability to control carbon emissions.
Obviously, from my rant in last week's show, I totally agree with you. Right? It is in actuality, it's an incredibly safe form of power. It's just scary because most people don't understand it. And the bigger issue is when you lose control of it, it does have the potential to do a lot more long-term damage than other fossil fuels do if you lose control of it. So the trick is understanding the safety mechanisms and ensuring you never lose control of it. But we shouldn't be afraid of it. We should. There's some really cool study in tech on how to make it really, really safe. But everyone's just afraid of the word at all. So we never go down that, and it makes me sad. It really does. It makes me sad.
I even read a recent article that was really interesting, but I didn't follow up on the sources, so I don't know how true this actually is. But I guess there was a study done looking at all the different meltdowns and accidents with nuclear power plants, and it turned out that a majority of the accidents were due to human error and nothing actually wrong with the hardware itself.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
So,
But even if it's true, who makes the error is irrelevant, right? So the possibility of you can't have that level of contamination. That's not okay. But building in those safety systems, and if we weren't so afraid of it, we could then spend some time, effort, and money to design these safety systems. But why would you do that if you can't deploy it?
Yeah.
Right? Because you could.
and going back to Membrane's comment of this, we need to be better educated.
We
about
need
it.
to be better educated. Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Absolutely. All right. Final comment.
Comes off of YouTube. Avogan.
Oh, don't listen to the poetry.
Vogan. We're going to go with that. Says, I like the astronauts' bragging rights aside in your discussion. If Virgin Galactic fly lower than 100 kilometers, I can't talk, and Blue Origin fly higher, then Blue Origin passenger astronauts will have bragging rights over Virgin Galactic passengers. I wonder if Richard Branson has factored in the impact of this in his business model.
No, because I don't think any of that matters.
No.
I really, truly don't.
Yeah.
No one's going to... Look, when Go ahead.
It's about the experience.
It is about the experience.
That's a very big. When people fly first class, there is sort of an overall level of comfort that comes with that in the decision making for that.
Sure.
But a lot of that also comes from the experience.
Absolutely.
So-
It's almost all the experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you are on another level compared to the cattle class sitting behind you. I mean, even going to the airport.
the walk of shame as you're drinking your drink, and they all have to walk past you.
You are given an experience from the moment you arrive at the airport with most airlines. You go to your own private lounge. You board the aircraft at your own private time. You are given a certain amount of leeway on the aircraft as well, as opposed to somebody sitting in coach. So it's that experience that really does it for people. That feeling of heightened sense.
Yeah, we absolutely need to have a show on the 100-kilometer line and why it absolutely does not matter, and we need to stop focusing on that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I still think A. Vogon is somewhat right, though. I think those people that will have gone through and had this experience will have kind of a friendly rivalry, just like a lot of the NASA astronauts do. Oh, you've been to the International Space Station? Well, I've been to Hubble, They're not actually being, real enemies, but it's just a friendly rivalry. So I think those people, those passengers who have done this experience, I could see that at a party, them like, oh, that's cool. So what'd you get up to? 68 kilometers in Spaceship Two. That's great. I got to 110 in New Shepard. How about that?
Yeah, I agree with you only because that is something I would do to someone.
I would do it too, except I'd be doing it for speed. Oh, you hit Mach 3.2? Yeah, I went
that's cute.
5.4 over here. I went hypersonic.
But that only applies, inside of those groups. When you're talking to the people who haven't gone to space yet, I think that no one's going to care, right? Yeah. And I think there's going to be this initial, incredibleness of, it doesn't matter how far up, if you just miss the the 100-kilometer mark, or if you make it, it's all going to be in the same category of suborbital space, and that's okay. That it is in the same category of suborbital space. All right. That is our show. Next week, one of my favorite topics, Skylab, actually. We're going to be talking about, there's a documentary coming up by Dwight Stephen Beninsky.
No, Boniecki.
Boniecki, thank you. So he's coming out with a Skylab documentary. We're going to be talking about that. I absolutely love and adore Skylab. I think that is one of the coolest U.S. space stations we ever had, and it is very, very underappreciated.
Yeah,
I think
it is.
So that'll be coming up next week. I'm really excited for that. We're going to have After Dark. We've got 2 more news stories that we did not get to, so we'll have those in After Dark coming up next. So stay tuned. After Dark's up. Oh. That's that. I have my director keeping me on track.
Gosh,
I cannot. I'm
producer of Tomorrow knows what's up.
Yeah, he does. So we also have our ground support patrons. As I mentioned earlier, every penny helps. These are people who have contributed between $1 and $2, and I know I'm a terrible human being.
Shame.
Well, for shame. For shame. $1 and $2.49. Thank you, everyone, for helping to support the show. We really do appreciate it. If you want to help support the show, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. All right, now we're going to take a quick break and come back with After Dark and those additional news stories that we missed. For those of you who are patron subscribers at $1 and above, you will get access to After Dark immediately. For everyone else, will be available in about 4 weeks. Thank you so much. See you next week.
See you in the shadow. I can't believe how much it's doing.
We're having a
totally
conversation
okay.
about hairspray.
Literally every time you turn to me, I'm like, oh god, that smell.
Sorry.
No, I'm just not used to
We're
it
gonna
yet.
let
You're
let
fine.
Carrie Ann go. She's suffering a minor headache. If you go into the edit suite, that might be all right. It's got its own.
Are you going to
HVAC.
news from here? Are you going to news?
We're going to
news in
we'll
there.
do news from here.
Yeah?
Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, kids.
All right.
No, I apologize.
I can just literally, I can go over there.
Sure.
I can't.
So
be.
one quick note for you: when we come in here, you keep your transmitter on your right pocket, and then what happens is, so you've got your transmitter here, but the receiver's over there. So even when I do this, you can start to hear it screw up.
So which side do you want it on?
You need it to be so that the antenna is kind of visible to the antennas over there. So your left side, but not obscured by the chair. So you may have to just, when you come in here, just take it out and just like stick it on your leg like this.
So her receiver was doing something weird too.
It was blinking green.
Oh.
No,
Yeah.
the screen was like flashing and it said like NW or whatever instead of the audio
NWA?
22. It was doing a weird thing. I pulled up my phone to try to record it, but then it stopped doing it.
So I think what's happening is it's
It was
trying
blinking
to
green on this side for sure.
right. So what that is that's frequency allocation. It's trying to find a new frequency and sync it between the receiver and the
During
transmitter.
one of the round tables, it was literally on the table still doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, yeah, that could be too.
Okay.
But they're not great because they're all in the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. So it's all fighting frequency, which is bad. We need better mics, which we will get someday. But even outside of that, actually, we may do that. We may just get better mics like around October timeframe. I might just buy them. Outside of that, to give them the best chance of success, especially when we've got the wall there, have the antenna out. Don't let it cross your body. That's nasty and hard and bad. All right, let's do those news stories because, excuse me, I did think they were interesting. I didn't necessarily want to skip them, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to keep.
Delay the guest.
Lika.
Yes.
Lika.
Yeah.
Oh, she's not on anymore.
She was fantastic.
Yeah,
NASA Jim, thank you so much. So, for those who don't know, we had a guest who actually did say, I'm really sorry for the last minute cancellation, but I do need to cancel, which at least I actually very much so appreciate the fact that they contacted us and canceled as opposed to like just not saying anything at all, which we've had happen before. So they cancel. I'm like, okay, cool, I can fix this. And so I started reaching out, and like a bunch of our friends that we wanted to bring on the show were in Yosemite, and so now I'm starting to panic. And so you keep kind of going up the rungs, if that makes any sense. And I saw NASA Jim on Facebook Messenger. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bother NASA Jim. I'm gonna nag him. I'm gonna be like, help, help. And so very long, and he did. He's like, I've got people, whoosh, and just like magic occurred in real time. It was incredible. I was actually in a Lyft car driving to Company X at the time, and if only the Lyft driver knew like the number of conversations and the quality of people I had going on in the back. I'm sure all the Lyft driver could hear was bloop 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 bloop, like annoyingly as I'm texting everyone furiously.
Stupid millennials with their stupid phones texting. Right. Can't you have a conversation?
Yeah, I was dead silent.
Jeez.
I was dead silent for like 40 minutes as we're in this car ride. Just bloop 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 bloop. But I'm talking to like just all these people at NASA. I got Maston going. I've got who else did I have? I want to say did I have Virgin at the time as well? I was just like, help, everyone, help! And NASA Jim, seriously, it was very last minute, very incredible.
Oh, speaking of new mics.
Yeah, no kidding. It was, yeah, NASA Jim, I need that T-shirt. I've got people. You do, though. And that was the amazing thing. You're like, hey, I know, right? It's not just, hey, I might have someone you're like, if this person doesn't get back to you, let me know. I've got this list of other people. So just so you know, you're now my go-to person. You have no idea what you've signed up for, NASA Jim. I hope she had fun. It was a great interview. I absolutely loved it, and it was timely, which made me super happy. All right, let's go back to those news stories here. Jared, let's start with you.
I just want to mention real quick, just because I was super curious. I looked up average G-forces for roller coasters, and actually the record is a roller coaster in Johannesburg that gives 6.3 Gs maximum.
Whoa! For how long?
Yeah.
Wow.
However, it doesn't tell me the average time that is experienced.
Wow,
it
what's
says
it
that
called?
A lot of one. Even it's called the Tower of Terror.
It's called the lung
and
crusher.
Even in one of the second highest one pulled 5.9 Gs. It was called Shockwave at the Six Flags in Arlington, Texas, but that closed in 2001. It was open from 1978 to 2001. Pulling 5.9 Gs.
So
Holy cow.
See that Tower of Terror here is it's a vertical drop roller coaster. So
it's not a drop, it's a pull.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, interesting. Now I want to go ride it. So you just violated the law. Breaking the law on TV.
Breaking the law.
Batman 4.9. Holy cow.
Wow, that is incredible. Now I want to go
ride.
I mean, I've always wanted to get a ride on a training centrifuge, and just crank it till I pass out. Right?
Well, not the same.
I would love to
Mission
do that.
Space.
They just reopened Mission Space. They've got the new animations, the higher rendered animations. They've got a new Capcom, who was what's her name from Firefly?
The Engineer?
I just watched it this morning and I can't remember.
I don't remember. Anyhow, new Capcom, and it's going to be awesome.
Gina Torres. There we go.
Sorry to see Lieutenant Dan go, though.
Yeah. The thing is, it was awesome to see him. It was really cool and all, but he was clearly reading cue cards.
Ken Mattingly.
All right.
Yeah, Gary Sinise. Mission Space is currently 2.5 Gs.
All right. Jared.
Yes.
Stars near the center of the Milky Way supermassive black hole hint at relativity.
Yeah, this is one of those cool experiments that we're actually doing, using... We're not doing it in a laboratory. We're using nature.
You said that wrong.
To do that, so...
It's laboratory.
Excuse me.
Always laboratory.
We're not doing it in a laboratory. We're doing it... Nature has provided the laboratory for us.
It's pretty
neat.
So,
Nature?
Yeah, nature. How neat is that? That's pretty neat. So we are using the European Southern Observatory's very large telescope, and a team from the University of Cologne in Germany and another from the Academy of Sciences Prague in the Czech Republic. They've been observing the stars that are closest to the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. And what's so cool is when these stars get close to that supermassive black hole, they actually end up moving at whole percentages of the speed of light. And that allows us to test what are called relativistic effects.
Wait. Whole percentages of the speed of light. So,
yes.
Like 1/2, exactly 1/2?
Well, the star that gets closest is called S2, and when it gets closest to the supermassive black hole in its orbit, it's moving at about 1.4% the speed of light. That is still a ridiculously fast speed. So, I mean, think about it. That would move you from here to, from the Earth to the Moon in about 100 seconds. That's how fast it's moving.
That's pretty awesome.
Ridiculous.
Pretty neat.
Yeah. And what's so amazing about this study is that these stars are 26,000 light years away, but we're measuring their orbital velocities so precisely that we're going to be able to test Einstein's theory of general and special theories of relativity just by doing this. So that's amazing that we can do that.
To put that in perspective, that's 3,000. It's Destructor 1701 in the chat room says 3,000 kilometers per second.
Yes.
Not per hour, per second.
Yes, that's fast.
That's really freaking fast.
Yeah. Now what's cool is that we take the orbits of these stars, and the way that we compare them to the physics, or basically the way that we check the physics of relativity is that we run models of the stars and their orbits based on classical Newtonian physics. And then we run models based on physics driven by general relativity, and we compare it to what we actually see in nature. And so far the data from S2, which is the star that moves its fastest, is exactly what the models with general relativity are saying. There's no plus or minus error on that. It is exactly what the models for general relativity are saying.
That's incredible.
So
that doesn't happen very often.
No, and that is that is consistent with what has happened ever since we have tested general relativity since 1915. It has never failed a test that we have thrown at it. It has always precisely given us exactly what is predicted, and that doesn't happen in physics. But it's happening. So, we still have to call it a theory, not a law. Usually at this point, maybe 100 years.
Maybe Einstein was an alien?
Maybe, I don't know. That's for the History Channel to discuss.
You know there were like 10 seasons of that show? Anyhow, yeah.
So most of the time when you've done a century's worth of study on something and it's been correct every single time you've thrown things at it, usually at that point you go, okay, it's a law. So we move it from theory to law.
Sure.
But there's a problem.
What's the problem?
Black holes.
So black holes break the law?
They break what would be a
law
of general relativity.
What law are they breaking?
Essentially physics itself.
That's magical.
So here's the thing. You can use general relativity to solve a black hole, and it works correctly.
Okay.
And it gives you a solution from that. You can use quantum mechanics to solve a black hole, and it gives you a solution from that.
Okay.
There's a problem.
Yeah.
Relativity solution and quantum mechanics solution, they're not the same.
Are they diametrically opposed as well, or are they just not the same?
They're not the same.
Okay. And they should be the same.
They should be. So the answer to the question is why are they different is I don't know. So, and you can go to the most advanced quantum mechanicists and theoretical physicists and ask them why, and they will let you know we don't know. So
we're missing a piece of the puzzle is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, there's something in physics that we
don't understand
quite understand.
But that's the exciting part.
Exactly.
The exciting part is the thing you don't know yet, and you're like, we're so close.
We have a true unknown in physics.
Black holes.
A legitimate thing that we can point to and say that is a frontier that someone is going to have to cross into someday.
Do you think someone will solve that in our lifetime?
At the rate that quantum mechanics, especially things like quantum gravity, has been moving at, probably not.
And when
because there's been 30 years of study in that field, and they have moved. So this is where they started. I'll do it for our guests or viewers. This is where they've started in quantum gravity and mechanics and things like that with black holes in physics. This was in the 1980s. So forward to the 2010s, we've moved about that much.
Yeah, but to be fair, we also had sweeping changes with Einstein as well, right?
Yeah, that is true.
It's not like
he transformed physics literally within a decade.
Right. So it's possible that could happen again, but we need that brain.
As we always say, there is another Einstein out there. It just depends on whether they actually get the education that they need in order to make that happen.
Although, didn't Einstein flunk out of math or something like that?
He did, but he also got really good at it too.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
Now, here's another dumb question for you. Let's just say we solve this.
Okay.
What does that mean for us? What is that going to open up from a physics standpoint? What kind of frontier is that going to open up?
So that's going to allow us to actually figure out what a singularity is. That's the thing that we
what kind
understand.
Is there a ramification, something that mere mortals here on Earth, this is what you're going to get out of this? So this is going to give us, clean, unlimited powers. It's going to get us. What is this going to?
You could potentially get basically like a unified theory of physics. So right now we've got tons of different branches of physics, and some of them are diametrically opposed to each other. Some of them, like quantum mechanics and relativity, don't see eye to eye. Some of them do come together, and they do confirm each other. This is one of those things that whenever it is figured out, it will definitely bring a lot of physics to the same level, eye to eye with each other, and that could most certainly simplify our understanding of cosmology and things like that. It could radically revolutionize the amount of knowledge that we could have in fields like that exponentially. And that is really one of the true goals with that, is to kind of bring everything into agreement and in accordance with each other.
So in a way, it would touch everything. It
Yes.
would touch everyone. They just wouldn't necessarily know how or why, but it would have a sweeping change on humanity.
But I will say, it's sort of like the discovery of the electron.
Okay.
Nobody really understood what we were going to be able to do with it.
Oh
at
yeah,
that time.
yeah, cool. Electricity. What's this good for?
Exactly.
Yeah, neat.
Look at but give it 100 years and look at what it did. So,
Now it's a utility. It's required to survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the most powerful weapons on Earth.
The electron?
Well, no, never mind. That's splitting the atom, not electrons.
All right.
Oh, well, yeah, that too.
Wait, discovering electrons.
Yeah, there's always a
My
good,
ray gun.
Yeah. There's always it's like the Schwartz, there's a light side and a dark side. So I got the dark side. So.
S.D.L. Schwartz was as big as mine.
So there you go.
What movie? Spaceballs.
Spaceballs. Yeah.
Spaceballs.
That was a question?
I legit I knew the movie. I could picture the movie. It was blah 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 funny. Couldn't remember the name for a moment. All right, that was your whole story, right?
Yes,
You
that's
got it
my
all?
story.
Yeah, you're
It's just
passionate and excited about that one.
Because it's such an amazing thing. Like, it's not every day that nature provides the laboratory for you to actually do that.
Nature's laboratory.
Like usually when you think about relativistic physics and things, you think about really old professors at the chalkboard working on math and staring at it for 20 years, and then and then another 20 years, but this is something that's happening in real time. And I forgot to mention in the story that S2 is going to approach the supermassive black hole at its closest next year. So we've got improved technology from the last time that happened back in 2002. So we're all very excited about what we're going to learn from that, because we learned a ton back in 2002 when S2 did that close pass. But now we've got
S2,
decade
that's
and a half.
Sagittarius 2, right?
Yeah, Sagittarius 2 is the designation for the star in that region. And then the actual black hole's designation is Sagittarius A star. So it has the little asterisk next to it, but it's pronounced star. So Sagittarius A star. I don't know why they did that. That's just a naming convention.
You guys suck at naming.
The primary one, and
I'm not going to
minor
demand that one,
one
Ben.
is Sagittarius 2, or I thought that was Sagittarius B.
I'm sorry, I missed that,
There's
Mike.
two of them, right? There's a primary one and then a smaller one,
For
or at least one that has a lower gravitational influence.
at the supermassive black hole.
Mm-hmm.
As far as we know, it appears to be one supermassive black hole. And it's got a mass somewhere on the order of about 11 million times that of the sun. So
Oh, okay.
Oh, actually, I think I
I
made you
didn't
wrong
know.
on
That's
that.
why I
I'm
was
sorry.
asking. For some reason, I had gotten into
Well,
it.
as you guys are looking up, I'll go to the chat room and
Sure.
say, Space Vogel says, it's so great to have Jared on the show and fill us in on all the amazing Astro stuff. Green Jim LL, LL, I believe, says, Jared brings science, which is always cool. And then you're also enjoyed by Prismara. Jared is my favorite higher, blah, 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 blah. And then someone accidentally red marked that one. There we go. I did that instead. Yeah. So, yeah. You're getting lots of kudos here.
So just to answer your question, Mike, because that was a super good question, and it kind of talks about the naming conventions that we have and things. During the studies that were done in the early 1990s by UCLA, that is when they began to actually differentiate. That's when we had the resolution on our telescopes to actually be able to determine individual stars. And there was one star discovered before S2. It was labeled S1, but it's not orbiting anywhere near as close as S2 is. And actually, right now we have up to 55 stars in that region that are named from that convention. So yeah, that's a really cool thing, Mike, that they're all given that name depending upon how they're observed. So.
For some reason, I'd gotten it into my head that there was a Sagittarius A and a Sagittarius B, and that there was a risk of them combining and having an even stronger gravitational force.
Not that we.
I don't know where I got that from. That's why I asked.
Not that we know of. Obviously, we can't discount it because we don't have the resolution yet to look in and definitively see the event horizon of Sagittarius A.
Sure.
So obviously I can't say no, not at all. But the chances are really low in terms of what we've seen so far. But in 10 to 20 years, when we have really good resolution, we could, and that would be an awesome discovery, a supermassive black hole binary at the center of our own galaxy. That'd be cool. So
Antifusion says
maybe that's why the common thing is binary stars, because we have a binary black hole system.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work in gravitational wave astronomy that will allow us to determine or characterize just how many binary black hole pairs there are out there, and that's why LIGO is so exciting, because it's going to be able to do that. So, yeah, it's so cool.
Actually, Destructor 1701 brings up an interesting point, which is, Mike, if they combine, the gravitational pull would remain the same. We'd have been feeling their combined pull all along, right? The gravity is based on mass, right? The mass would not.
Yeah, total amount of mass in the
and
singularity.
be unchanged.
So, yeah.
Yep. And then Anti-Fusion, I got to do this again, says, we need This Week in I.O. Sticky outy tonguey face.
What's I.O.?
On I.O. I think the moon.
Like the moon?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my favorite celestial body in the solar system, yeah.
Jared's This Week in I.O.
We can just cut to a scene from like Star Wars Episode 3 or something.
Exactly.
I don't know how we would do that. They haven't
What's going on
made.
This Week in I.O.?
There is no Star Wars Episode 3. I don't know what you're talking about. There's 4, 5, 6, and now 7, and soon 8. But I'm not aware. I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's no. As far as I know, there's no Episode 3.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
don't
good
know.
point.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
There's a 2 and a 3. They just made one. It's called Rogue One.
Oh, yeah, they made Rogue One. There's Rogue One.
That's Episode 1.
Well, I guess Episode 1, and then there's not a 2 or 3, but then there's 4, 5, 6, and then we just had 7. We're about to get 8 this Christmas.
2 comes after 4.
2 comes after 4.
What?
And 3 comes after 2, and then
Okay,
and then 5
on that
comes
note,
after.
Mike,
Is that
Space
metric
Mike,
numbers?
Space Mike.
I
turned to the hologram. I turned my back to you, and now I turn to the hologram. Your news is like depressing, though.
Yeah, super depressing. This is going to sound like almost like a regular news story that you might hear on, before the media got obsessed with the tweets of the hour from the new president. There's some really weird reports coming out of Denmark regarding one of the founders of Copenhagen suborbitals. We're all a big fan of Copenhagen suborbitals here.
Oh, heck yeah.
They're not a company. They're a crowd-funded volunteer space agency.
How freaking awesome is that? That is the most epic and awesome thing ever. Yes.
Yeah. So these reports, they involve Peter Madsen. who is one of the two primary founders of Copenhagen suborbitals, and the sinking of one of 3 of his kind of do-it-yourself submarines that he purchased and renovated.
As one does.
The UC-3 Nautilus, which is what you see on screen there. And I believe that's even Peter driving it, the guy that you see at the top there. And it's really nice to see that for scale of how small this thing is. But apparently the submarine sank on Friday, and he was rescued from the sinking sub. But there was a reporter who was reported to be with him from Sweden who is missing and was last seen on this submarine with Peter Madsen the day before. Since then, yesterday, Peter Madsen has been arrested and charged with murdering the missing reporter. Divers have located the wrecked sub. Go ahead and go to the next picture that shows it towing their mobile platform that they use to launch their rockets out in the Baltic Sea. Divers have located the wrecked sub, but they haven't been able to enter it yet. And Madsen swears innocence in that he dropped her off in port on Thursday, the day before, but the Danish police are still investigating. Now, Copenhagen Suborbitals has kind of, there's Peter Madsen on the left there, and Christian von Westen on the right. And they've kind of had a few, delays, I would say, with financial issues, I suppose. And they've kind of had a resurgence over the past year, and they've even been able to conduct a launch of their Nexo 1 rocket, and their next launch of the Nexo 2 rocket was supposed to happen in just a little bit. That's scheduled for August 26th this month with a backup of August 27th. And I just really wonder, of course, the primary thing is finding the missing journalist, whether she is still alive or not. That's the primary thing. And until she's found, and whether or not this whole thing turns into a scandal, I really am curious as to how this will affect them and whether or not, they're going to lose support from their supporters and their volunteers, or whether they'll be able to continue on despite this. So I am very definitely nervous for Copenhagen Suborbitals, and I wish them the best. Even Peter himself, I wish him the best, and I really hope that there has not been any sort of foul play here. And I just, I don't know how to feel about it yet, but, as soon as we have some sort of updates, we'll talk about it for sure. But I really hope that they're able to continue on and still keep that launch later on this month, and that it won't bring this down, because it's not a company. As I said, it's a non-profit, volunteer-based space agency. I know it's just a small thing, but it's such a cool idea, and their whole concept of having kind of like a Mercury capsule, or even a smaller type of Mercury capsule to do suborbital flights with, is awesome. I would love to have that experience. That, to me, would be even more thrilling than riding on either Virgin Galactic's or Blue Origin's vehicles, because just me and oh my God, just the intense amount of terror and fear and adrenaline all at the same time would just be an amazing experience. I love them. So again, I don't know how to feel about this yet, but I'm very concerned and very hopeful that they don't lose support. So I guess I want to know from you guys, how do you feel about this? Does this make people want to? Would this make you guys want to kind of back away from Copen suborbitals, or if this turns into a major thing, is that just on the individual, Peter Madsen, and do you think that Copenhagen would be fine to be able to move on with all their different rocketry suborbital plans?
And adding
I'm
to
really
this,
curious to know what you guys think.
Adding to this is Green Jim Mool says in the chat room, Peter hasn't been involved in the COP sub for quite some time, which I believe is true as well. So while he's one of the founders, I don't think Peter has actually been around for a while. It's been years at this point, hasn't it? Does anyone clarify? It's been a long time, but the name is still attached. Even so, it feels like there's not enough data to come to any real conclusions here.
Yeah,
this is
such.
It's a lot of speculation, but that's not okay.
It's a really fresh story.
There's
not been a lot of
this just
details.
This happened yesterday.
Yeah, left in Space Vogel says left in 2014, right? So. Copenhagen's ability to go on past Peter was proven after 2014. So then I guess it's really, will the media tie the two together, in 2017? Well, they tied it with the submarine side, and they've kind of passively glanced at like the rocket side, but everything I've seen really more talks about the submarine than the rocket side of everything. Because I mean, these are our favorite group of crazy people, like the right kind of crazy, that just are like, let's go build a submarine. Like, who does that? Well, they do. They do. Yeah, no, let's use that submarine and a mobile launch platform, and let's build a rocket. Let's do that. So, yeah.
I don't even remember from the Nexo 1 launch whether or not they used one of the subs to pull that mobile launch platform after, or if they had a different tugboat. I only saw the launch itself.
Well, they have their Vostok, which is their communications boat, which is a former tugboat, if I remember correctly, and they use that for for radio transmission and taping and live streaming the launch and stuff. I don't think that they use that to put
more
it
like
in,
a support vessel.
Yeah, I don't think they use that to put it in place. And the photo that you showed the submarine like docked up to their little mobile launch platform.
And that's an old photo too, from like their Heat 1X stuff that they were doing back in what was that, like 2008, 2009?
Yeah, they've been doing this stuff for a long while.
Yeah, and it's really awesome and really inspiring project. But I thought that there was 3 of these submarines that were all about the same size that they were using, and I guess my question is whether or not they're still using those, or if they've already kind of separated from Peter, and if he's not really involved. And if so, then great. But I just hope that there isn't more of this kind of bad press association between the two. And that's what I guess I'm more afraid of, is the bad press and people, blacklisting them.
If anyone can get past it, it's Cop Sub, right? I mean, I feel like this is not going to slow them down. In my personal opinion, they're just going to be like, neat. We're doing this because we want to, not because any of the weird other stuff. So they'll just figure it out.
It doesn't sound like any of that's related. If Peter isn't in charge anymore, and
exactly,
maybe they're not even using his vessel.
Yeah.
So they find another boat to pull the thing into place. That's completely irrelevant.
Yep.
I mean, beyond everybody on the team that has been around since Peter was there, knowing who he is, what other connection do they have?
Yep. Also, there's a continuing chat in the live chat room trying to say that there is an episode 2 or 3, which there is not. By the way, there's Rogue One, which is like episode 0. Then you've got episode 4, 5, 6. And you recently had 7 and upcoming 8. So there are a total of 6 episodes. Well, 5 right now and about to be 6. So that's all I'm aware of, at least. There's no other episodes.
I'm not sure what's going
no
on.
other episodes I'm aware of. Those are only Star Wars episodes.
Some alternate timeline we're not a part of?
Well, there's like this machete. Is that how you pronounce it? Machete?
I think you guys are experiencing some sort of like Mandela effect or something, or memory disassociation. Sorry.
Was it Mini Stoge that liked Jar Jar? No. Who was it?
Lauren.
Oh, your brother's wife?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your sister-in-law.
My sister-in-law. Those are the right words. Yeah.
Those are the right words. I guess we're getting tired.
Just Structure 1701, Ben. Only a Sith deals in absolute. Well, yeah. I'm pretty clear that I'm on the Empire side here. I'm all about the dark side of the Force. So I have never, ever not been clear on that at all.
So since that was introduced, there are now bookends for that.
Yeah.
So you got to start with Rogue One and finish with Force Awakens.
Yeah. Agreed.
Oh my God! All right. Are we winding down?
Yeah.
Are we coming to a close here? You guys enjoy the show? I hope you liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
That was really interesting.
Um,
It was very engaging.
Yeah. So we've got, Mini Stoge, my favorite part of Star Tours is smashing into Jar Jar.
Yep.
Yeah, that is pretty fun. For those of you who go to Disneyland or Disney World on Star Tours, if you're lucky enough, there is one of the sequences you just run right into Jar Jar and he just smears off your windshield. He doesn't get to do it. And the first time you watch it, you're like, oh man, I don't want Jar Jar. And I'm like, oh, nope, we don't get Jar Jar. It's fantastic. Oh yeah, Space M. That was a serious accusation. You should apologize to Stoge. Yeah, I'm sorry. Unless Stoge actually did like Jar Jar, but I assume not. All right.
Not if her favorite part of Star Tours is
running into.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Space Kyle says film an intro. Yeah, keep up, dude. We did that in the beginning of the show.
Yeah, we don't do that in post thingies anymore. Yep, I do need to do an edit there.
That's so early, Orbit 10.
Oh my God, that's so 2 weeks ago. All right, I think that's.
You guys been into California too long.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also
only all of my life.
My ability, my threshold for temperature has changed. That's how I know I've been in California too long. I used to be able to take like negative 30 Fahrenheit to positive 100 Fahrenheit. Now I can take 70 Fahrenheit to about 74 Fahrenheit. That's my range right there. Before I'm like, oh, it's chilly. Okay, that's our show. Thank you everyone so much for joining. I'm excited for next week where we talk Skylab. That's gonna be awesome. And
I won't be here.
You won't be here?
I'll be on my way to Oregon.
You won't be here?
Next week? No.
Where are you going to be next week?
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not going to be here next week. Sorry. So, good luck with that.
Really?
Yes. Really?
Oh, yeah, I know you're not going to be here next week.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's been
correct.
a known thing for a while.
Yep, that's been on the thing.
Yep.
So it's going to be, Mike, it's you and me.
Yay!
Hey, Lisa.
Ben and Mike show.
Yeah. Maybe we should bring Lisa in or something.
I feel like the last time it was just a Ben and Mike show was like something maybe Orbit 8.
Probably. It's been a while.
It's been a while. All right. On that note, thank you guys. See you next week. Bye.
We'll see you later.